The 59-year-old has spent the last 17 months at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, New York, not far from the federal prison in Manhattan, where Epstein died in August of 2019. His death was officially ruled a suicide.
I can't believe that they just say so conclusively that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself without even saying like suicide, but with, I don't know, with a qualifier that it was like suspicious conditions. You know what I mean? Suspicious circumstances or anything like that. I mean, I guess like, why would they do that? But also at the same time, it's like, it's just nuts, man. It's just nuts. It's nuts to say Jeffrey Epstein absolutely killed himself. I'm sorry. It's just insane. Wait, you believe he was murdered? I 100% believe he was murdered. Are you kidding me? What? People are shocked that I think Jeffrey Epstein was murdered? It's pretty much proven by now he tricked the prison personnel to get into a situation to kill himself. What the fuck? Yo, do I got CIA handlers in the chat? What the fuck is this shit? This is your worst take in my opinion? What the fuck are you guys saying? Wait, I got Jeffrey Epstein killed himself and he's in here? What? I'm more inclined to believe that Epstein is a fucking body double than believe that he actually killed himself, okay? And I do not believe that he has a body double. Do you not think a status-driven man is crushed mentally when his image in life is, as he knows it, is gone? Dude, he already went to fucking jail for raping minors, dog. And he had a fucking another 20-year run. What the fuck are you talking about? Bill Gates was trying to fucking work with Jeffrey Epstein after he had gone and served a prison sentence for sex trafficking minors. You think that's the kind of dude who's like, oh man, my life is ruined now? No, motherfucker. We actually need like something to a refresher. The New York Times article is literally the reason why people are saying Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. New release records show the disgraced financier living a mundane existence in jail before his suicide, literally in the fucking title, in the subtitle, while also spinning deceptions until the very end. The subtitle dictates that not only did he kill himself, but he also wanted to throw everybody in a loop while killing himself. Guards and other prisoners that are supposed... I mean, the article itself straight up actually shows how fucking psychotic it is. Like, if you read the entire article and you go through it, you're like, the fuck? How are you going to tell me at the end of this article where you're describing all the ways in which, like, things went wrong, oopsie, that he actually killed himself? Like, the article literally describes every insane thing that had to happen for Jeffrey Epstein that would make it impossible for him to kill himself. And then in the end is just like, yeah, but he killed himself. You do realize, like, this is one of the main Chud talking points. It leads straight into Pizzagate and QAnon shit. I would kill myself if I was in his position. It's over. What? This is one of the main Chud talking points? No, it's not. What the fuck are you talking about? A guy who was functionally untouchable his entire life, who was friends with Bill Clinton, who took many trips on the Lolita Express, who was a prolific underage sex trafficker, who was friends with billionaires, millionaires, the wealthy, and incredibly powerful people, whose prior prosecution literally fucking gave him a sweetheart plea bargain because they said that there were people in DC that said that, you know, you need to back off from this guy who may or may not have had, intelligence connections. That fucking guy is all of a sudden feeling really sad after a lifetime of, international sex trafficking of minors and getting slaps on the fucking wrist for it. And then still being able to rub shoulders with like Bill Gates and every other fucking prominent billionaire, millionaire, and Harvard professor. That guy was like, oh man, it's over now. I'm for sure going to jail now. It's totally over, dude. No. I don't think Jeffrey Epstein thought that he was going to I don't think Jeffrey Epstein thought that he was going to get got. There's a difference between conspiracy, like conspiracy to commit murder, and a conspiracy theory. But unfortunately, because of insane conspiracy theorists, many people, including those in this chat, immediately are terrified of being labeled a conspiracy theorist. So they refuse to fucking recognize that there are situations in which there is certainly larger actors at play. It doesn't mean that there is like a deep state pedophile vampire conspiracy, but it sure does seem like a blackmail operation, a sex trafficking blackmail operation. So let's go through this. The disgraced financier jailed in Manhattan on federal sex trafficking charges involving teenage girls was found unconscious on his floor of his cell one morning in July 2019, a strip of bedsheet tied around his bruised neck. Now remember, the bed sheet that they're referencing is paper thin. It's anti-suicide bed sheets. In the hours and days that followed that suicide attempt, Jeffrey Epstein would claim to be living a wonderful life, denying any thoughts of ending it, even as he sat on suicide watch and faced daunting legal troubles. I have no interest in killing myself, Mr. Epstein told a jailhouse psychologist, according to the Bureau of Prisons documents that have not been previously made public. He was a coward and did not like pain, he explained. I would not do that to myself. But 2 weeks later, he did just that. He died in his cell on August 10th in the Metropolitan Correctional Center, having hanged himself with a bed sheet, the medical examiner ruled. They put him on suicide watch and then took him off suicide watch. I need a reference on that. As someone who's been to jail before, I could have easily done it with the sheets I was given. The sheets you were given were probably regular sheets and not fucking paper sheets. There are literally anti-suicide sheets that you can get. That's why your shoes also don't have fucking laces, because they don't want you to kill yourself or anyone else. After a life of manipulation, Mr. Epstein created illusions until the very end. Yeah, dude. Yeah, no, totally. He was doing it for the fucking memes, dude. Yeah, that's why. Like, what kind of fucking psychotic argument is this, dude? It's like, yeah, he wanted to create an illusion in the very end and, like, make people believe that the top of the hour ad break wasn't here when it actually was. As I was saying, the idea that this dude would fucking kill himself and do it in a way where he was like trying to get people to think that he wouldn't actually kill himself is so psychotic, especially considering the reality that how the fuck did he know that the guards were going to not be paying attention, that the footage was not going to be available the very moment that he actually ended up killing himself. How did he plan all of that, dude? Is that what he did? That's so insanely unlikely. And it fucking blows my mind that people would think like, oh no, that actually makes it. He's like, he was just mega minding his own, he was a masterminding his own suicide plan so that people could fucking say after him that he actually hadn't killed himself, that he was murdered. Mr. Epstein created illusions until the very end, deceiving correctional officers, counselors, and specially trained inmates assigned to monitor him around the clock, according to documents, among more than 2,000 pages of Federal Bureau of Prisons records obtained by the New York Times after filing a FOIA lawsuit. The detailed notes and reports compiled by those who interacted with Mr. Epstein during his 36 days of detention show how he repeatedly assured them he had much to live for, while also hinting that he was increasingly despondent. The clues prompted too little action by jail and bureau officials who made mistake after mistake leading up to Mr. Epstein's death, the records reveal. That's a thing that people who want to commit suicide always famously say is, hey, I'm not trying to commit suicide, actually. That's a thing that they famously say all the time. You know, when someone is definitely trying to commit suicide, they say, hey, by the way, I'm feeling pretty good and I'm not going to kill myself. You know, despite that, we're just going to keep going along with the narrative that he definitely did kill himself. Okay. Beyond the legal and administrative matters, the collection of records provides the most intimate and detailed look at yet at Mr. Epstein's final days and offers something missing from public accounts: his voice. He passed many days closed in a conference room with his lawyers, avoiding the confines of his dank and dirty cell. Still getting a luxurious, maybe not as luxurious as his Florida prison stay, but still getting a fucking relatively better prison sentence circumstance than most other people that were in that Manhattan correctional facility. In conversations with psychologists and other inmates, he spoke of his interest in physics and mathematics and offered tidbits of investment advice. He reminisced about socializing with celebrities, even as he complained about the running toilet in his cell, the orange prison garb, his difficulty sleeping, his dehydration, and a numbness in his right arm. An intake screening from erroneously described Mr. Epstein as a black male. Oh, here are some of the fucking insane things that happened in prison. One, when they were doing an intake screening, they said he was a black male. They indicated that he had no prior sex offense convictions, even though he was a registered sex offender with 2008 convictions in Florida for solicitation of prostitution and procurement of minors to engage in prostitution. The lack of significant interpersonal connections, a complete loss of his status in both the community and among associates, and the idea of potentially spending his life in prison, the post-mortem continued, were likely factors contributing to Mr. Epstein's suicide. You can say this about everyone that is going to prison. This is literally the same for every single person that is going to prison. That is insane. So everyone that fucking dies in prison actually technically committed suicide because, you know, everyone feels this way when they're going to prison. This is how you feel when you're going to prison. That's what prison does. That's part of the fucking punitive measures. A guy who's like a sociopathic, rampant fucking pedophile who has gotten away and evaded authorities as a consequence of his connections in the past, is all of a sudden feeling the squeeze. As a part of the settlement, the agency agreed to turn over internal memos and emails, visitor logs, handwritten notes from inmates, and the psychological reconstruction of Mr. Epstein's death. Many of the documents were heavily redacted. Some were withheld entirely, including a number of records associated with the earlier suicide attempt. So the earlier suicide attempt has apparently video footage or something, but it's just not there. No one can find it. No one knows where it is. At a hearing in April regarding the Times lawsuit, Judge Paul A. Engelmayer of the Federal District Court in Manhattan said he was struck by the audacity of the initial denial by the Bureau of Prisons to make the records available in a case that he described as a high-profile epic failure. Very suspicious. It certainly does raise a concern, the judge added, that the wagons are being circled. Also very suspicious. He initially was placed in the GenPop, general inmate population, the least restrictive area, which is fucking crazy. In an internal email, Hugh Hurwitz, then the Bureau of Prisons acting director, later attributed this to an oversight. Dude, they don't put pedophiles in GenPop, even if they're fucking random pedophiles, okay? Not Jeffrey fucking Epstein. Do you understand? They literally do not put pedophiles in the United States prisons in general population. You want to know why? Because they get fucking murdered immediately. The idea that they would first put him in general population is just like, yeah, we wanted him to get murdered. Sorry, that is not like a tiny oopsie. Putting him down as a black man on accident when he very clearly isn't is maybe an oversight issue. Putting him in Gen Pop is not an oversight issue that is that tiny. That's not an accident. That's trying to get him fucking murdered. Apparently, the USMS did not indicate that he was a high-profile inmate, and staff were unaware that he was coming, so no plans had been established, he wrote. The most high-profile fucking inmate, perhaps in the history of fucking federal prisons in the United States of America. This man is a prolific pedophile sex trafficker who was friends with Bill Gates, and who the previous prosecutor in 2008 literally fucking dropped his case down to a light fucking little tap on the wrist when he was already fucking sex trafficking minors in Florida. That's insane. That evening, according to the post-mortem reconstruction of facilities assistant, found Mr. Epstein in his cell looking distraught, sad, and a little confused. When the assistant asked if he was okay, he said he was, but she was not convinced. She wrote, he seems dazed and withdrawn. I don't know, maybe because he's in fucking jail, okay? Maybe it's because he's in prison. Who knows? She added, just to be on the safe side and prevent any suicidal thoughts, can someone from psychology come and talk with him? No one did it first. On Sunday, the center's warden properly identified Mr. Epstein as high profile and had him moved to the special housing unit, or SHU, on the 9th floor out of concerns for his personal safety in GenPop. But it was not until 9:30 a.m. That Monday that Mr. Epstein was taken for an initial psych eval, as had been suggested when he had arrived. That afternoon, Mr. Epstein was set to make his first court appearance. Anticipating that he would be denied bail, the jail's chief psychologist recommended that he be evaluated for suicide risk upon his return. They talk about prison life and etiquette, boring stuff, who cares? Being alive is fun. On the morning of Tuesday, July 9th, Mr. Epstein underwent the request formal in-person suicide risk eval. The psychologist, whose name was redacted from the documents, found Mr. Epstein to be polite, cooperative, organized, coherent, and even showing a sense of humor. Epstein adamantly denied any suicidal ideation, intention, or plan, she wrote in her notes. He requested a phone call, a meeting with his lawyer, a shower, and to brush his teeth. Mr. Epstein described himself to her as a banker with a big business and said that being alive is fun. He denied having sexually abused anyone and said he would have renewed bail hearing this next week, where he believed he would be released. He was future oriented, the psychologist wrote. She concluded that suicide watch was not warranted, but that out of an abundance of caution, Mr. Epstein should remain on psychological observation. In the weeks before his death, he made statements that he was a coward and was having difficulty adapting to his diminished circumstances. The next day, Mr. Epstein asked to be single-celled, but was told he could not be housed alone for safety and security concerns. And the day after that, a psychologist wrote, he was smirking and said, "Why would you ever think I'd be suicidal? I'm not suicidal, and I would never be." On July 18th, it became apparent that Mr. Epstein was unlikely to return to his former life and friends anytime soon, if ever, because he was denied a renewed bail request. 5 days later, in the early morning hours of July 23rd, Mr. Epstein made his suicide attempt. The denial of bail was cited as a significant disappointment for Mr. Epstein and likely challenged his ability and willingness to adapt to incarceration. Given the potential impact of the judge's decision, a psychologist should have assessed Mr. Epstein's mental status upon his return to the institution. He was removed from suicide watch about 31 hours later, according to the documents, and again placed on psychological observation. They took him off suicide watch after he made an attempt on his life, which we have no additional evidence on, by the way. That suicide attempt that they're referencing, according to Epstein's lawyers, was not a suicide attempt, but instead an ass whooping that he got from his cellmate, Tartiglione, the juiced up ex-cop who murdered a bunch of fucking people. But of course, this article does not cover that at all. So I don't know why this article is not covering that part at all. That seems very weird. And the same prosecutor, Jim Comey's daughter, who's prosecuting Ghislaine Maxwell, is partially responsible for the attempt, the first suicide attempt video being lost, and it no longer exists. That's insane, dude. Will the New York Times mention this? Because I feel like honest journalism in this situation would probably show that, right? I mean, a prison has like round-the-clock surveillance nonstop. It would be really surprising to me if the paper of record does not mention that the original suicide attempt video footage suspiciously does not exist, and the backups don't exist either. That's weird. We read through that part, and not a single one of them, not a single fucking mention of that, right? That's so weird. Interesting. He was removed from suicide watch after 31 hours, though, according to the documents. Some within the justice system voiced concerns about his mental state. Federal marshals who escorted him on July 31st court hearing returned with a prisoner custody alert notice, which said Mr. Epstein might have suicidal tendencies. This prompted another suicide risk assessment by a psychologist. He denied having suicidal thoughts again. The psychologist was persuaded, according to the documents, writing the suicide watch was not warranted. He stated he believes for and plans to finish this case and go back to his normal life. What I find to be really strange also is that what happened to the fucking footage that they recovered from Jeffrey Epstein's Manhattan apartment? In black bags, they took countless amounts of CDs that had suspicious titles of famous people's names on them. Jeffrey Epstein also had cameras all around his New Mexico ranch. He had cameras all around his fucking West Palm Beach estate. And he had cameras all around his Manhattan mansion as well. That's really weird. We have not talked about those tapes at all. I wonder where the fuck those tapes are. So, if his original suicide attempt was legitimate, why did they let him off suicide watch after 31 hours? If his original suicide attempt was illegitimate, why didn't they fucking still keep him under non-stop surveillance? A lot of this stuff does not make sense. When he arrived back in the SHU on July 30th, Mr. Epstein was given a cellmate, Efrain Reyes, a prisoner who was assisting the government in a drug distribution. Come on. I didn't even know this part. When he arrived back in the SHU on July 30th, Mr. Epstein was given a cellmate, Efrain Reyes, a prisoner who was assisting the government in a drug distribution conspiracy case. Mr. Epstein complained that the man's talking kept him awake at night. That all changed on August 9th when Mr. Reyes was transferred out of the jail and the staff was alerted that Mr. Epstein would need a new cellmate. That same day, the day before Mr. Epstein died, as he huddled with his lawyers in a conference room, a federal appeals court unsealed about 2,000 pages of previously confidential documents in a defamation lawsuit against Ghislaine Maxwell, his longtime associate and former girlfriend. Miss Maxwell, who was charged last year with sex trafficking and other offenses, faces a trial this month in Manhattan. That evening, according to the reconstruction, a unit manager at the detention center helped Mr. Epstein make a social phone call. The manager dialed for Mr. Epstein and let him speak for 15 minutes. The call was not properly logged and does not appear to have been recorded. That's really interesting. It is not clear from the documents whether the call was on a monitored line. I asked inmate Epstein who he was calling, the unit manager wrote. He stated his mother. Mr. Epstein's mother died in 2004. The call was to his 30-year-old girlfriend, Karina Shiliak, whom he helped put through dental school, said 3 people with knowledge on the phone of the phone conversation. Mr. Epstein, they said, gave no indication during the call that he planned to kill himself. The call that night, however, was not included in the phone logs provided to the Times by the Bureau of Prisons. The logs show only one social call during his stay, more than a week earlier, on July 30th, to Miss Shuliak. She's one of the largest beneficiaries of several trusts that Mr. Epstein set up over the years, according to 3 people briefed on the matter. Mrs. Shuliak declined the comment through her lawyer, Maurice Surkars. After finishing the call, Mr. Epstein returned to his cell, where he was alone because no new cellmate had yet been assigned. He was also left unmonitored, part's really weird, by the 2 officers on duty whom prosecutors later accused of spending their time surfing the internet and appearing to be asleep. This May, the 2 officers entered into a deferred prosecution agreement on charges that they had falsified jail records about checking on Mr. Epstein. Strange. Oh, by the way, yeah, the guys who falsified the records got no jail time. The cops who lied about fucking checking in on him, falsifying records, and falling asleep during the time frame where Jeffrey Epstein was suicided got no punishment. At 6:30 the next morning, he was found with a bedsheet tied around his neck like a noose. About 2 months after Mr. Epstein's death, an inmate who appears to have worked in the kitchen emailed the psychology department about a conversation he had with a man whose cell had been next to Mr. Epstein's. He responded in the negative, effectively refuting my theory that Epstein couldn't take the animals into the shoe and chose to end it as a result. Couldn't take the animals in the shoe and choose to end it as a result. I no longer believe that rooming with Jeffrey Epstein would have saved him. Oh, yeah, sure. He said the other inmate had told him Jeffrey Epstein definitely killed himself. Any conspiracy theories to the contrary are ridiculous. The man had heard Mr. Epstein tearing up his bedsheet before committing suicide, the kitchen worker wrote. He wanted to kill himself and seized the opportunity when it was available, he added. Such is life or death in this case. Article over. That's it. That's how they end the article. No mention of Tartaglione. No mention of the fact that, like, his prior attempt. No mention that the prior attempt footage is also mysteriously pee-pee-poofed. No mention of the footage of this attempt is also gone. Just that there was a deferred prosecution agreement for the fucking two correctional officials, officers, that were supposed to be monitoring him, who were not monitoring him. And the only strong evidence is one of the prisoners said he definitely wanted to kill himself. If you look at this entire story from top to bottom and don't think that it's very strange that the New York Times dropped this right before the fucking Ghislaine Maxwell case and straight up neglected to mention his prior fucking roommate, which the Jeffrey Epstein team said was the reason why he was assaulted, even just to say it's not true. Like, even the New York Times could have just literally been like, Tartaglione's team claims that, Jeffrey Epstein was not assaulted, but actually tried to attempt his life. And Jeffrey Epstein's team claims that Tartaglione made an attempt at his life. And then that the footage was nowhere to be found. Why would they not mention that? So the only evidence in this entire article that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself was that another inmate told another inmate that Jeffrey Epstein wanted to kill himself. Like a friend of a friend. Like one inmate told another inmate that Jeffrey Epstein wanted to kill himself. That is the only affirmative evidence. The only conclusive and affirmative evidence that shows that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself is that. The rest of the article that is supposed to fucking create the narrative that Jeffrey Epstein, without a shred of a doubt, killed himself is literally just a sequence of insane coincidences that line up so perfectly that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself and wanted other people to also speculate that he hadn't. That's beautiful, dude. Okay, can you explain why the Times would omit that info? I don't get it. Because that's the fucking narrative. The narrative is that Jeffrey Epstein just killed himself. Come on, shut the fuck up. Don't think about it. Don't talk about it. It's not weird that the fucking labor secretary at the time, Alex Acosta, was the fucking prosecutor who straight up said, I was told by DC to drop this case, that to not prosecute it further. How is that not talked about at all? How is there not a single fucking congressional investigation into this matter? Literally, a guy who fucking hung out with Bill Clinton and flew all around the world with Bill Clinton was a prolific pedophile sex trafficker. That is psychotic to me. That no one, and I mean no one, is like, that's fucked up. That's kind of weird. But you have to be fucking delusional not to recognize that this situation is insane. And the fact that more people aren't asking questions about the situation is also insane. What the fuck? Who do you think killed Epstein? I have no idea. Trev, Tennessee. It could be a number of different people. The worst part about the situation is that, like, he had so much information. He had so much information. So many unanswered fucking questions. So much evidence. The fact that we simply do not fucking know anything about the black bags full of potential blackmail. We don't know where the fuck they are. We don't know what's going on with that. Like, we just have no information on it. It's just nuts, dude. And it's sad. So much injustice for all of these victims. What was the purpose of killing him? That's what I don't get, to be completely honest. What do you mean? If you have more blackmail than fucking God, then no shit, dude. It literally, every single person from Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, and like I just said, what people would gain from killing him. Bro, Ehud Barak, the former prime minister of Israel, was caught leaving his like fuck palace in New York in like 2016. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, everybody knew he was a prolific pedophile, and they were still like going and hanging out with him and fucking doing meetings with him. Bill Gates. Yeah, Mossad CIA joint venture is right, dude. Crazy.
Outraged by the Maxwell case. You talked about Darrell Brooks, the creep who ran over his girlfriend, then killed 6 people in the parade, and he was out of $1,000 bail. Ghislaine Maxwell has been in jail for 17 months for no bail. They give her no bail. She is sitting in prison prior to trial accused, get this, of events that happened between 1994 and 1997.
She's a flight risk.
A flight risk. She offered to put up a $28.5 million.
What is going on? What the fuck is going on? First, The Spectator, where Boris Johnson's sister literally wrote an entire article about, like, I'm going to defend Ghislaine Maxwell, who may or may not have fucked my brother Boris Johnson when he was in uni, and we hung out with fucking Ghislaine's father, Robert Maxwell. And then you have the Bloomberg article being like, Ghislaine Maxwell, like, most prolific female pedophile associate or victim. And now Geraldo's like talking about her fucking, what is happening? I'm losing my fucking mind. What is going on? Why?
Bond.
She's going to escape to a country that has no extradition.
So you take her, you throw her in solitary confinement.
Allow me to educate you on
solitary
the federal
confinement.
bail law.
17 months.
You're defending
17
a sex trafficker.
I am
underage
defending justice.
Sex trafficker.
The prosecutor in this case are guilty of political lawyering.
She deserves to sit in jail.
Because you don't even know she's guilty. How do you know?
Because she's a flight risk, because she was hiding during COVID.
She was not hiding.
In the Northeast.
She bought a house
in yes,
in
she
New
was
Hampshire.
$1 million house.
They
Let
holding
me educate
her
you
because
really
they don't have a
quickly.
case.
Let me
They have
speak.
no case.
They have a
This is
big
the
case,
segment
Geraldo.
I'm running.
What is it? What? Bro, what do you mean they have no case? What is going on, dude? I'm losing my fucking mind right now. What the fuck is going on, dude?
They're trying to try Jeffrey Epstein.
Here's the federal bail law. You're allowed in 1980.
Does he know, like, Ghislaine personally? Because he just said they're trying to try Jeffrey Epstein through Ghislaine. That is a direct line from the fucking defense team. The defense team is working actively to separate Ghislaine Maxwell from Jeffrey Epstein, saying that Ghislaine Maxwell herself did not know the criminal wrongdoings that were potentially occurring. Okay, that's like a straight up fucking. Would have expected this with the Dersh to do this, not Geraldo. No, the Dersh defends Jeffrey Epstein, not Ghislaine. If anything, the Dersh would probably come out and say Ghislaine is actually a villain and Jeffrey Epstein was the victim or some shit. He's been at this for over a year. Geraldo Rivera thinks judge went too hard on alleged Jeffrey Epstein enabler Ghislaine Maxwell. Hate Ghislaine Maxwell all you want. Allegations of her loathsome crimes depict events that happened a quarter of a century ago. She denies all and has not fled the United States and is not going to leave now that she's purchased an estate in New Hampshire. Despise her, but under the law, she should get bail. Bro, to say that Ghislaine Maxwell is not a fucking flight risk is insane. She absolutely is. And this is different than this. Here, he's literally saying they're trying to try Jeffrey Epstein.
Because they don't have a case.
Let me speak.
That's a very different than they don't have a case. Regarding the defense naming RFK Jr. as having been on the plane, still think it must have been JFK Jr. and they misspoke, though Wysowski did not correct them. By the way, contrary to big number tweets, Ghislaine's team named Clinton, Trump et al. It wasn't the pilot spilling the beans. He literally said, okay, this is fucking bananas, dude. This is really strange that he said this. He's saying the defense has, he's saying that they have no case, which is very different than saying that they have no case is significantly different than saying that, it's fucked up that they're not letting her get off on bail. On July 22nd, 2020, Rivera called President Trump brave when he wishes that Ghislaine Maxwell well after a reporter questioned Trump over Maxwell's charges of helping Jeffrey Epstein traffic and abuse children. Rivera called that the fact that Maxwell had been denied bail and given solitary confinement an example of woke politics. Rivera had previously accused the judge who denied bail to Maxwell of caving to the mob. Yo, that's really weird, dude. Someone should look into fucking Geraldo Rivera's relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell. That's very weird, dude. That is most people, and Ghislaine Maxwell was very connected because Robert Maxwell is like a fucking media baron and an ex-Mossad, OSS turned Mossad CIA guy, okay, who also died under suspicious circumstances. But he was also a fucking media baron in the UK. So obviously Ghislaine knew a lot. He was super well connected. So a lot of people fucking knew her in those socialite circles. That's why she was so helpful to Jeffrey Epstein, continuing with this pedophilia and minors being sex trafficked crimes that he was able to do. So seeing an elite like Geraldo Rivera come out and just fucking defend her this way is nuts.
No case.
This is the segment I'm running.
They're trying to try Jeffrey Epstein.
Here's the federal bail law. You're allowed, in 1984, Congress passed federal bail law. You're allowed to deny bail on 2 grounds. flight risk and danger to the community.
Where is
Flight
Ghislaine Maxwell going to
risk.
hide? Where's she going to hide?
What the fuck do you mean? Everywhere on the planet? Like,
Everywhere.
She can hide overseas because
She's been
nobody
living
knows where
right
the money
here.
is.
This is ridiculous.
Way to stand up for a
Injustice.
sex trafficker.
Mob justice.
One more thing is next.
Mob justice.
yo, that's crazy. Saying like she should get bail and she's not a flight risk is like already crazy, but literally claiming that the fucking court has no case against her and saying they're trying to prosecute Jeffrey Epstein is the biggest self-report in that conversation. So much so that he almost fucking catches himself. Look here.
She bought a house
yes,
in
she
New
was
Hampshire.
$1 million house.
They
Let
holding
me
her
educate you
because
really
they don't have a
quickly.
case.
Let me
They have
speak.
They're holding her because they don't have a case. That's crazy. They're holding her because they don't have a case. It's a direct defense of Ghislaine Maxwell.
case.
They have a
This is
big
the
case.
segment I'm running.
They're trying to try Jeffrey
Here's
Epstein.
federal.
They're trying to try Jeffrey Epstein is the biggest fucking self-report. He literally is like, that's like straight up out of the fucking pocket of the defense team. Like, I don't know what the fuck he's saying. That's a very, very weird thing to just like openly state, dude. That is like an incredibly weird thing to just purposely, you're fucking defending it like you got some shit going on. That's very strange, man. Anyway, let's watch.
On day one of the Maxwell trial, a tale of two Ghislaines. The assistant U.S. attorney calling the 59-year-old a
I
predator
gotta pee, I'll be back.
who was setting up young girls for wealthy financier Jeffrey Epstein, telling the jury the defendant was trafficking kids for sex. That is what this trial is all about. Maxwell, the daughter of a British media mogul and Epstein's former girlfriend, faces 6 criminal counts, all focused on a decade-long period between 1994 and 2004, when federal prosecutors say she helped recruit 4 underage girls to have sex with Epstein, and in some instances participated in the abuse herself. The prosecution detailed the experiences of one of those girls, who was just 14 when she allegedly met Maxwell at a summer camp. Prosecutors say her abuse went on for years when the girl was 15, then 16. They had a playbook. First, they got access to young girls, then they gained their trust. The defense arguing Maxwell is being blamed for crimes allegedly committed by Epstein, who took his own life in 2019 while awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges. The defense called Maxwell a convenient stand-in, arguing the 4 alleged victims at the center of the case will come in here and they will point their finger at Ghislaine Maxwell. There is nobody else to point their finger at. They say Maxwell was in charge of managing Epstein's properties and was just one of many who fell victim to his manipulation. Maxwell's sister.
Yeah, dude, totally. Took his own life for sure, totally. And also, she's a victim too. Let's just believe all the fucking narratives, dude. I feel like I'm actually losing my mind right now. The fact that I don't really care about like mainstream media fucking saying that shit. I don't really care about mainstream media saying like, oh yeah, Jeffrey Epstein fucking killed himself, whatever. What I care about is my community also fucking playing along with the mainstream narrative and taking it in hook, line, and sinker. It's mind boggling that there even 9% of the people that voted in this fucking chat were suckered by the mainstream manufactured consent on this. It's really weird. Like, why do you come to me if you like the reason why you come and get your news from me on top of like all the other outlets is because you want to see like a different fucking perspective.
Isabel seen arriving to court amid a swarm of cameras, one of several family members who have publicly shown support. Maxwell has pleaded not guilty to all charges. Trial is expected to last 6 weeks.